Welcome back to Mystery Books to Read podcast. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into Dennis Lehane's Mystic River. It's a book that really gets you thinking about how much childhood trauma can shape you, like in ways you don't even realize.
Yeah, it's set in the Flats, this working class Irish neighborhood in Boston, and the setting. It feels as important as, like, the people who live there. Lethane's really good at making you feel the grit and the weight of the history in every scene.
From the very beginning, you're just pulled into this community where it feels like everyone knows everyone else's secrets.
Yeah.
And all that shared history ends up being both a blessing and a curse for the main characters, Jimmy, Sean, and Dave.
And what Lethane does is he uses this single childhood event, Dave being abducted, and it's like the catalyst for everything that unfolds in the story. It's like this crack in the foundation of their lives. And as adults, each man is dealing with the aftershocks in their own way.
It's really sad because you see these moments of their innocence,
Oh.
their bond as kids, but it's like the trauma really stunted their emotional growth and it left them stuck in this cycle of pain and resentment.
Exactly. Sean becomes a cop, trying to impose order on a world that feels so chaotic to him. And Jimmy, who is always the hothead, turns to crime, then tries to go straight. But the past always seems to pull him back in.
Yeah.
And then Dave never really escapes that day in the car. It's like he carries that trauma with him, like a wound that never heals.
When I first read the book, I was really struck by how real those wounds felt. It made me think about like all those defining moments in our own lives, the ones that really shape us and make us who we are, for better or for worse.
And Lethane doesn't shy away from showing how that trauma ripples out and affects their families too. Like Jimmy's wife, Annabeth, she's trying to hold everything together. But Dave's wife, Celeste, she lives with this constant fear and uncertainty. They're collateral damage in this whole unfolding tragedy.
And then on top of everything else, Katie's murdered. And that just completely shatters the fragile equilibrium in their lives. It forces all those old wounds to the surface and just pushes each of the men to a breaking point.
It's interesting how Lethane uses those initial suspects, Katie's ex, Bobby, and this young guy, Brendan, to kind of distract us, almost like a magician. It's like he wants us to make assumptions about troubled youth, makes us look in the wrong direction while the real story is unfolding right in front of us.
It's so clever because as a reader, you get so caught up in the mystery, trying to figure out who killed Katie, that you miss these subtle clues. You miss the tension that Lehane is so carefully layering into the story.
And all those clues, they point to Dave. His alibi is shaky, there's blood in his car, he's acting really strangely, but Lethane is so good at creating ambiguity, He keeps you guessing the whole time, he makes you doubt everything. You question whether Dave could really do something like this, a victim himself.
That's what makes it such a good book. You end up feeling sorry for Dave even as the evidence against him piles up. And then there's Sean trying to lead this investigation. He's caught between his job as a cop and his loyalty to his friends.
It's that classic struggle between justice and loyalty. Sheridan is trying so hard to be objective, but how can he be when the case is so personal to him? He ends up having to confront his own past, his own demons, as he tries to figure out the truth.
And meanwhile, Jimmy is just falling apart completely. He's consumed by grief and rage, and all he wants is revenge. So he gets his old friend Val Savage to help him, and they basically start their own investigation outside of the law.
This is where Lethane's exploration of moral compromise gets really interesting. We see Jimmy, this man who obviously loves his daughter very much, descend into being a vigilante. You can see his pain. You almost feel sorry for him. But his actions just bring up these really difficult questions about how far grief can take you and the dangers of taking justice into your own hands. It's not just Jimmy either.
Yeah.
Sean also ends up facing this impossible choice as the investigation goes on.
Yeah, he's not just trying to solve a murder. He's also dealing with the ghosts of their past.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like all that history, those things they never talk about. It's almost too much to handle.
For sure. And then the truth about that murder weapon comes out. They figure out it's connected to a robbery that Brendan's father, just Ray, committed. And it's like everything just explodes.
I remember reading that part and I was like, what? Such a crazy twist. You think you're following one story and then Lethane just throws you a total curveball.
It's so smart because it makes us think about that idea of sins of the father, like just Ray is this small-time criminal and he ends up accidentally playing a part in Katie's death. His past has these terrible consequences even though he never meant to hurt anyone.
It really gets you thinking about how connected we all are and how these choices that seem small can have these huge ripple effects that we never even think about.
And all those ripple effects lead us to the climax of the book. When Jimmy confronts Dave, it's this heartbreaking and scary scene, just full of raw emotion, and you don't know what's right or wrong anymore.
You can feel the tension building as Jimmy comes face to face with Dave. He's so full of grief, and now he has this new information. It's like a bomb about to go off.
And Lefane doesn't give us any easy answers. He makes us look at the darkness inside of Jimmy, you know? That need for revenge that just takes over. It makes you question everything.
It makes you wonder, if you were in that same situation, would you be any different? If someone took someone you loved away from you, would you want revenge too? It's a question that stays with you even after you finish the book.
And just when you think things can't get more messed up, Sean shows up. He sees what Jimmy's done, and he has to decide what to do. Does he do his job as a cop, or does he protect his friend?
What a tough spot to be in. So he can't win, no matter what he chooses.
And he decides to cover up what Jimmy did, which has these huge consequences for all of them. It creates this bond between them, a secret that ties them together. But it's all based on lies and this twisted idea of what's right.
It's really sad. You see how much guilt Sean carries? It's like he's trying to convince himself that he did the right thing, but deep down he knows he crossed a line that he can't come back from.
And it all goes back to that idea of silence that runs through the whole story. The characters are always hiding things. They hold in their pain and their secrets because they're afraid of what will happen if the truth comes out.
It's like that silence becomes another character in the book, this weight that hangs over the community that affects how they interact and the choices they make.
And then on top of all that, Lethane shows us how gentrification is changing the flats. This close community is falling apart. People who have lived there forever are being pushed out. It's changing everything about their lives.
It's like a metaphor for how innocent the characters were when they were kids. The flats are disappearing just like their childhood. It's being replaced with something new and strange.
And that feeling of loss, of not belonging anymore, just adds another layer to the story. It's not just about figuring out who killed Katie. It's about understanding what made these characters who they are, the place that shaped them, and the choices they make after something truly awful happens to them.
Yeah. It's like Katie's murder just throws everything off balance.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see how Jimmy, Sean, and Dave deal with what happened.
Yeah, Jimmy is dealing with the guilt of what he did, and Sean can't forget that he covered it all up, and then Dave, he has to figure out how to live with everything that happened.
And Lethane doesn't really give us a happy ending or tie everything up neatly. It all feels kind of unsettling, even after you finish the book.
Totally. Because the point of Mystic River isn't about finding all the answers or making everything right. It's about how complicated people are, and how the past never really goes away, and how much trauma can affect our lives.
I thought a lot about Dave's wife, Celeste. She's stuck in this awful situation. She loves her husband, but there's all this evidence against him.
Celeste is like the perfect example of someone struggling with loyalty and truth. She wants to believe in Dave, but she has these doubts, you know? It's like the fear is eating away at her. And Lethane is so good at writing these complex female characters that feel so real. You can't help but feel for her.
And her story makes you think about some really tough questions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how much are we willing to ignore when we love someone? And when does being loyal turn into lying to yourself?
Those are the kinds of questions that stick with you long after you're done reading. And that's what makes this book so great. It's not just about finding out who did it. It's about understanding why they did it. It makes you think about the darkest parts of what it means to be human.
It's a book that really gets under your skin. You start to question your own ideas about good and evil and what it means to be punished or forgiven.
And I think this book is even more powerful now than when it came out. You know, we're constantly getting all this information and we don't even know what's true anymore. It's hard to know what's right and wrong.
It reminds us that the truth isn't always easy to find. It's hidden behind secrets and lies. And the choices we make, even when something terrible happens, can affect people in ways we don't expect.
So if you're looking for a mystery that will make you think, a story that will make you question everything you thought you knew about people, then Mystic River is a book you need to read.
It's one of the best mysteries out there. It's about childhood trauma and loyalty and betrayal. And it's about trying to find justice. And we highly recommend it to anyone who likes a good story that explores what it means to be human.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel and leave us a comment telling us what you thought about Mystic River. We want to know what you took away from it and what questions it left you with.
And if you liked our deep dive into Mystic River, make sure to check out our other episodes where we talk about more great mystery novels. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.